disabilities, maybe mental disabilities. There's a lot of things that make somebody dysfunctional to our standards of thinking. Um, but when he's talking about a slow turnaround, he's talking about all the elements that we need that are now the technology with tiny housing. And I can't stress this enough. Utah started 7 years ago with Housing First. And I would only like to ask them one question. What's your collateral damage? Because I work with St. Vincent de Paul's, and our collateral damage just in a couple of years is enormous.
What do you mean, collateral?
You move somebody that's homeless into an apartment, and in 1 month, the apartment's just devastated, maybe even burned down. It's an enormous cost, and I've noticed this, and this is something they really haven't taken into effect. And once again, I point to this idea of a city unlike any other city that exists now. There's no streets. There's really no, it's a divided city by all the services. One side of it is the retirement, which encompasses retirement, medically disabled, soft mental, people that are law-abiding and able to, they don't need much policing. What they need are services. And then the other side is rehabilitation, where you do need policing. But what isn't in this city are drugstores, gun stores, or alcohol stores. Like I said, all the services basically run down the center, outside of some outlying laundromats or senior centers and stuff that seniors would have on the retirement side. There should be parks there. There should be all the elements in this city, especially with retirement and rehabilitation, should focus towards some gardening or farming, dealing with animals and people working in the dirt, growing their own vegetables. It's a human connection that you lose when you're in the homeless world. You get what I call a disconnection from the reality of who you are and the world around you. There's people walking around who don't have any human contact. And that's hard for me to deal with, because I know it's very important for us to all have human contact. But when I became homeless 12 years ago, one of the first things I realized, some people aren't having any human contact. They're not having anybody even call their name out, say, "Hey, Joe, how are you?" Nobody's saying Joe to him at all. And he's not talking to any. There's an enormous amount of people that are just excluded from society altogether.
It's almost like solitary confinement, yet there's nothing physically restricting them, and yet many of them have a wall of fear that they don't even want to look another human being in the eye, almost, you know, or be confronted with their...
Again, they become disconnected with themselves. And this happens when you're chronically homeless, such as I was for 12 years. You're going to suffer physically. You're going to be physically drained. You're going to be emotionally drained, and you're going to be spiritually drained pretty much through the whole experience. It's a wave. You can get a little crest here and there, but you really are all three of those things, which is horrible. It's grueling mentally, and this is where
Let's put a pause in there and go back to the introduction right now, Albert. And I'm here in our show, California Times. My name is Guy Meyer, and Albert, tell me your last name. I don't even know.
Albert Ellis.
All right. Yeah. And currently, you are holding a job, too, right now.
I work for St. Vincent de Paul's in what started out as the hot team helping homeless people get off the street, which is now through the county and New Beginnings and other agencies, Ritter, become what is called the Housing First, or my portion that I'm dealing with is called Bridge to Housing. And what I deal with are the people that are really the worst off. Basically, you could say the worst of the worst. I don't want to say that in text of their humanity, but it's the people that are the most devastated and have been out on the street the longest. They're the ones I'm dealing with that can't fit in with other people at this time. So we've got them at St. Vincent de Paul's, where I am working with case managers for them, but I'm basically the superintendent, 24-hour superintendent there working with them. And I enjoy it. I enjoy helping people. I enjoy helping them move forward. So anytime I get that opportunity it's an inexpensive gift. We all have the ability to help people move forward with just support and words of encouragement. So
I didn't mean to interrupt your train of thought.
No,
there,
that's-
and I did, but I think that this train, we're going to find that this train is pretty forward moving here with our conversation today. I think we're not going to be able to get too lost from this train. And when you opened up with this mentioning Richard Attenborough, what was it?
Richard Attenborough.
And his line about you can't. You have to walk the future. What did you just say? Again?
Richard Attenborough, when he got done doing the Planet series thing, they asked him about the fifth installment, about where we're at on this planet with all the things we're facing, climate change, homelessness, all that. They asked him what he thought our path should be as a human race, and he said, he was money on it. He said, we need to take a slow turnaround from our future. And what he's saying is we can't just disconnect from what we've created. But there is a portion of society that is displaced. And this is one of the things that's very relevant in understanding homelessness. America had faced a displaced people before in this country. When we got here, we told the Native Americans, get off our land. And we displaced them. And so what we did was we put them on reservations. And the government's intent was well intended, but the money and food that was sent to them was basically robbed most of the time. So they lived a cruel and inhumane life, very much like today's homelessness, without much of a support base. So my point is, again, here we are, we're dealing with the same exact thing. We have a displaced people in America. They're displaced all over. And I'm talking basically about the chronically homeless, not so much the homeless, because some people can experience homeless for 2 months, 6 months, or a year, and they get out because they don't become that dysfunctional. Make no mistake, it's still a hard avenue to navigate out of homelessness, no matter what your condition. But I'm talking about chronic homelessness. These people are incapacitated. Most of them are either mentally or through drugs or alcohol or old age, retirement, physical disabilities. There's a slew of things that make you chronically homeless where you can't get up out of homelessness. And maybe this is where I should tell people what it's like to be homeless. In the event that you become homeless, it's very much like the Lionel 8-track train set from the 50s where the train goes around in an 8-track. The engine of this train is called sleep deprivation because you're not allowed to get any sleep. When you're homeless, there's nowhere for you to sleep legally, so you have to go into the bushes by dark and get out before dawn. And that leaves you living like a caveman, kind of, because you're going to live with all the bugs and the animals, but the caveman had it better. He could burn off the brush and build a shelter. You're going to have to crawl in. So the inhumanity in that event is that you're not going to get any, there's two things to get good sleep. I call them quantity and quality. To get some good Z's, you have to have quantity and quality. When you're homeless, those things do not exist at all. Never will you have quantity, never will you have quality, ever, ever through your journey, ever. So that's the engine pulling 1,000 boxcars on this train as your sleep deprivation. And the boxcars are a mirror of the things you're going to experience, starting with maybe I'm injured or sick. And when you think of those texts, like maybe I got the flu, I need 4 days in bed. The doctor says 4 days in bed, orange juice, chicken soup, forget it. You're on this train and there's no recuperation area or sleep or anything to assist you. And that could be either flu or a broken leg. But the next boxcar behind that is maybe it's inclement weather. Maybe it's raining out or about to freeze. Now, if you're sick and that happens, that's compounded. But it just gets compounded with every boxcar, because the next boxcar behind that is I'm going to sleep with every mirrored bug known to man when I crawl into these bushes. The next one, there'll also be every mirrored animal known to man sleeping with me, mice, rats. So it's not a pretty picture that this paints. And then when I say there's 1,000 boxcars, there are 1,000 boxcars. It could be I have an appointment I've got to make. I've got to get something to eat. I've got to get my laundry done. There's a 1,000 things that we take for granted when we have a job or a home. In those situations, we have a wash machine and a bathroom in our house. So you have this train of boxcars. You're pulling 1,000 of them, which is an enormous weight. And then you get to the caboose on this train, which is there's no bathroom on this train, so all aboard. Who wants to get on that train? And so it's all those things compound to make navigating homeless nearly impossible. And for most it is, because if they have any drug issues or alcohol issues or mental issues, that train isn't going to go anywhere except in that 8-track circle. The same events happen every day, and there's no escape from it.
It seems to me, I can feel I think many of us who are not in the homeless situation have elements of a separation from, the peace of mind. If you speak of the first engine of your homeless engine of sleep deprivation, I guess I'm a bit of a experienced hand at that.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of my fellow human beings, maybe not some more dramatic than others, have issues with their own peace of mind, particularly in this year 2019. Maybe it's when we get a certain age, as we look at our civilization, sort of like, again, the signs of seizing, of identifying this future that we're all involved in, that is no future at all. It's like, where does this finally collapse? In what level of utter destructiveness, or where do how does that train, even for many of us who are not homeless,
Yeah.
who found a way, have got that little basic good stuff, step, or maybe they're reaching for, the golden ticket. Maybe they've got the big ticket job and they're young, but anyway, so.
I think what you basically point at is something that I've thought a lot about, is that as a human race, we've lost a lot of our humanity, and we've lost a lot of our understanding what it really means to be human and who we are. We've lost context with just what it means to be human alone. And I try to simplify things in life, and I tell people this. There's over 7, and I'll start crying because I don't lie to people. I just tell them the simple truth. And the simple truth is there's over 7 billion of us human beings. And that, my friend, is the end of the subject, because if you add one iota of anything, you've walked away from the truth, and you no longer know what it means to be human anymore. Because what it means to be human is to see yourself in all of the 7 other billion of us and realize we're all identical. We're all identical. We all have the same dreams and aspirations and desires and hopes. We're all identical. We're all 100% identical. And it's like I said, once you walk away from the truth, everybody has a truth. But what I say is, do you have the truth? And what I'm talking about is the truth. The truth is there's 7 billion human beings on this planet, and that's the end of the subject. If you add one thing, and I don't care what it is, if you add one, you have totally walked away from the laws of nature and the truth of nature. You've added a truth now that you believe.
So, in this expression of a sort of a fundamental that you're perceiving at this moment and communicating here with the 7 billion, to understand exactly where you were coming from with this thing.
I can put that in.
You are not suggesting, are you suggesting that this is 6 billion a number that's immaterial, or is 11 billion? Or is it just that you're just talking about humanity in general, whether it be 1600 or 1923?
The numbers are irrelevant.
Exactly.
Again, I go back to what I said at first, was we've lost our perspective of what it is to be human, especially in this day and age. And where I'd like to put that into text so people understand is that for eons and eons, we sat around campfires in groups of people, and we shared our stories of sorrow and joy, our laughter, our tears, our food, our music. We shared everything in a setting of humanity. And that's gone. It's pretty much gone in a lot of the aspects of life anymore. As ironically as it is, you can't really gather a bunch of people without a permit or something and share music and food. We can't just do that anymore. If even in a neighborhood, we can just say, let's all gather. We'd have to have a permit and something to do that. And it's part of the demise of our humanity. It has a bit to do with the internet because it's not one-on-one reaction. When I look into your eyes, you can see my spirit, and when I look into yours, I can see yours. But on the internet, you can't really see the spirit of anybody, you know. So in that text of humanity, when the thing I really try to point to people is that we've all branched off into what we've taken to be serious or made issues out of in life. And you were hitting on it earlier. Really, what's it going to take for us as humans to draw ourselves back all together again and start rethinking this little tiny speck of space we live in? I mean, it's so minute, and we have to find ourselves again as humans. I mean, it's just so ironic. They say. The cost of curing homeless in America would be something like, I don't know, it's $8 or $32 billion or something. And they said that that's what the world spends on war in 8 days. And I'm thinking, my God, if we didn't have war at all on this planet, we could all live like sultans and kings pretty much in some text. Everything is so out of line, from our politics to our thinking. We got to stop thinking. There's a lot of things. Like when I was talking about humanity, and you got to look at humanity and say, okay, there's 7 billion human beings. You got to recognize all of us as, we look at birds, we can say they're birds. We need to look at humanity like that too and say those are people. Those aren't blackbirds, they're birds. We're birds. We're just, and that's what I'm saying about not adding anything to our humanity. The laws of nature do not have borders like California. They don't know anything about Christianity. The laws of nature don't know anything about Muslim or it doesn't really have anything to do with that. Those are things that we've developed in our way of thinking to identify, sect and break things apart and dissect them. And when Richard Attenborough talked about that turnaround, we kind of quit having to doing that. We really have to quit dissecting everything. William Burroughs, he said a couple things that really... William Burroughs.
William Burroughs. Okay.
He said the only unreal thing in life does not exist. The only unreal thing.
Oh, the only
unreal thing in life does not exist. And you can't deny that. You can't deny that. And then he said the only unnatural act in life is the one that cannot be performed. And right again, he's spot on. He's spot on. I mean, as unnatural as you think it is, it's natural to nature of humanity. And that's kind of what I'm driving at, because I think it was in the 60s we had separation of state and church. And that pretty much took the state out of the church, but it did not take the church out of state. And I don't like to take anything away from any religion, but I do like to tell people that there's 742 known religions in the world, and the scholars have a little bit of a discrepancy between 32,000 and 42,000 different sects of those, meaning different branches. So I'd ask anybody who's into religion, are you sure you got the right one? And like I said, I don't like to take anything away from religion, but we really do need to take religion out of politics. It really has to dissolve. It's more corrupt. It's as corrupt to me as the politics. It's working against us.
Well, I personally don't see too much of it in terms of, except the world divided, as I guess you could say, what could you say? You could say the Islam versus Christianity, or Christianity versus Judaism, or whatever, somebody's fundamentalism versus somebody else's.
That's what I don't.
Absence of any fundamentalism. But isn't there still, when you get back to your statement of the identicalness of human beings?
That's where I'm trying to
Isn't
get.
that a fundamental tone that just kind of rings true.
Yeah.
That I feel like that maybe even in your touching your inner emotion and speaking that, and in terms of finding that Attenborough's concept of saying, "Wait a minute, future."
Right.
Can we alter this?
Right.
Can we? Are there
Revert.
simple steps? And I feel like that you're not alone. Like you were hitting the nail on the head.
Yeah.
I am not alone. It is a concept of we're all, working internally with an inner dialogue, which is almost simply of the eye of nature in human form,
Human form.
questioning every day my existence in this crazy world. I feel like we've got we may be just simply on this
I think we're on the
cosmic precipice of
figuring something.
discovering
And,
things.
and I want to
out.
follow through with this religion thing, because where I want to go with it, like I said, I don't like to take anything away from religions, but when I realized there was 742 different religions and somewhere between 32,742 and 42,742 variations, I thought about my contact with religions, and I've had a few, but not anywhere near that number, probably less than a dozen. But one of them that rang true, and this is the one that I loved being homeless and finding, was the native Plains Indians hit the nail on the head. When they summed up their religion, they said, everything in life has a great spirit, the earth, the air, the wind, and the water. And they give thanks and respect and reverence to everything. So once again, what I'm saying is I found a religion I can hand to you in a handful, and it doesn't need any instructions. But somebody did ask me a curious question about 2 weeks after I came to that conclusion. They said, what are the mechanics of that religion? And ironically, I said, well, I don't really know what the mechanics of the Native Americans were, but I just happened to run across something about Abraham Lincoln. When somebody asked him when he was president, they said, Abraham Lincoln, what's your religion? And Abraham Lincoln paused for a minute. He thought about it, and he gave the spot on 100% accurate answer. And I'll cry again because it's so true. He said, when I do good, I feel good. And when I do bad, I feel bad. That's my religion. And what I'm saying when that's spot on is, as a human being, whether what you're doing is right or wrong. It doesn't take a book or instructions from anybody. It's inside of you. All the answers and everything in life are inside of each one of us. That's the beauty of it all.
Doesn't that imply, in a way, a potential for
It goes.
an ideal, a planet that simply works? And we know, for instance, I mean, in this this crazy mess of civilization that we have here. I mean, people do drive on the right side of the road in this complete symphony of what potentially is disaster. Human beings, by a huge majority, will do the right thing for the most part in a daily life.
Right.
Maybe making some compromises that their own consciences, just like you say, is perhaps, you're going to cause them to beat themselves. Maybe they'll figure it out.
It all goes back to really reconnecting with our humanity as individuals, as a community, as a state, as a country, and as a world. We really need to reevaluate what's going on in the world. I think most people in the world are like us. They want to have a future. They want to see a future. They want to help people. They want to move forward. They want to see things get better. And that potential is there, but it's not really going to happen until we come together as a people. And we really do have the ability to do that. I was just thinking the other day about starting a site called basically Let's Make the World Great Again. Anyway, we don't need the politicians. We really don't need them at all. As a matter of fact, we should start excluding them from our future. we really should to some extent. When I was talking about building cities in America, we could do that at a community level here in Marin County, or we could do it at a state level, or it really should be done at a national level where we build 5 or 6 or 7 of these cities that are going to hold millions of people. And they're rehabilitation and retirement cities. They're unlike any other city. They have mass transportation. There's a few emergency roads. But they're all about taking us to the future. All aspects of them. Tiny housing. You're talking about, I started my idea with what I called the Green Village, which was just the idea of taking a $1,250 fire retardant Native American canvas tent from Oakland, $32 delivered here, another $800 in poles. For $2,000 I could put up a teepee with a deck in it, do no damage to the earth, and house 20 guys for the next 20 years for pennies on the day, just to give them some shelter. It was the simplest. But the reality is we have a lot of things, new technology, and all the composting of our byproducts and waste, to an enormous amount of workforce in this new city as it be. There's a lot of young people that don't want the $250,000 house. They want the $30,000 done deal. You know, the tiny housing. And the reason I go to tiny housing is, again, because you have so many variations of people in distress and the homeless that we can house them for $5,000 for the rest of their life in a tiny house. Now, if you have somebody who's a pyromaniac, you go, well, we got this new stainless steel one right here for you. What I'm saying is you're cutting down. There's applications for everything.
Totally.
And this is an old saying I loved that I learned in high school. Don't look at the problem, look at the solution. There's always a solution. There's a solution to everything. And when I would talk about either my Green Village or these cities, people go, there'll be problems. Well, of course there'll be problems. There's problems in everything. Your marriage, everything. Nothing escapes problems. But don't dwell on them. There's the ability to move forward. And so one of the main things, because I'm dealing with a lot of people that are just got drug problems, alcohol problems, mental problems, and then you compile those into 3. You just got a walking disaster. And we have a lot of walking disasters throughout America. There are people that need to basically be institutionalized, and that's an ugly word when we think about how it's been done in the past. But when I talk about institutionalizing, I'm talking about building a new city where you have retirement on one side, rehabilitation on the other. All the services, the hospital, all the stores, everything's right in between them, separating, because the people in rehabilitation shouldn't be over in the retirement side bothering them until they're rehabilitated at some point later.
I think that the vision of a new city, or a new, really in a way of a new planet, we're trying to like take off this this ill-fitting suit of clothes that civilization has bound itself by right now. We're trying to discover what's underneath it, what makes us whole. And actually, I had a friend, I hitchhike a lot.
I have too.
And I get this wisdom, it seems like, from different people. And one person said to me, on my way to work, that she thought that human beings, almost like animals, might be wired to know what is the right civilization. In a way, like some internal guide will just say, I mean, that's pretty pie in the sky, but there's a sense of what you were talking about too, knowing between the good and the bad. And when you do bad, your inner conscience, I mean,
eats you alive.
Have them.
Yeah.
We have a conscience. I'm not sure if some people have been able to block it or rationalize other things, but I guess we're looking at this movement, and I personally I tend to be looking for the small solutions rather than the big city. I feel like things can evolve, like a vacant lot.
Right.
Let's say in the canal, like in any urban America, where you have the industrialized desolation zones that are pretty much concrete or asphalt or whatever. You know, what would it take to reclaim one of those lots? And just as you say, if you could put 40 or whatever, 50, make a little village, some of these, a big block, could hold 40 or 50. You could have everybody with a little garden and a tree, transform that block into an ecological little paradise, and people could, you could have privacy. You could have a section on this block that might have a textile center, or might have a print shop, or might have something.
A
Where
recycling,
each little
there's
block,
yeah.
There's so many different options of where
So many.
we could create.
It's
Potential.
it's endless. The potential is endless.
And we've got to probably just begin to experiment, but maybe maybe things are still cooperating. Maybe like nature is so flexible, we haven't quite realized the power still that we're haven't tapped.
When I started my idea of the Green Village 12 years ago, there's a lot of the NIMBY, not in my neighborhood, activity in Marin. So I'm always thinking about how do you overcompensate this not in my neighborhood. So when I talk about a city, whether it's at federal level or at a level of Marin County doing it, again, it would have to be a neighborhood unto itself. It can't be connected with another neighborhood. It can't, because it's got that rehabilitation aspect. You don't want to put the two in eyesight or earsight, really, so to say. But I was thinking about this, not in my neighborhood, so I was thinking, well, how would I develop a community where people just could not say no? So it came up with the teepee idea. So if I bought or put up 30 or 40 teepees, 20-foot teepees, I house 5 people in them. Maybe I run some electricity out so they have the basic needs, and then I have some outbuildings. Or maybe I build a kitchen there that would have a log facade. Whether it's real log or imitation log is irrelevant. But I'll guarantee you, when you're driving by that neighborhood, wherever it be, and if you look at that neighborhood and you go, I don't like that, I want you to know something. There's something wrong with you. Because this is what would happen. I do know this. If you live here in Marin and your nephew comes out with his new bride from New York and she's never been here before, and you pick him up down at SFO and you go, well, I'm going to take you over to San Francisco and we're going to see this and that. They're going to go, no, I want to go see that village I saw on Time Magazine up here in Nevada, the one with the log cabins and that, because it just, it would pull you back. And it has to do with Richard Attenborough. Let's turn around and go back a bit. The past was beautiful. If you put up some teepees and some log facade buildings and you have it in a meadow with some trees in the background, you're going to go, God, that looks so beautiful. You're going to enjoy seeing that every day. And it's irrelevant what's going on there.
Well, I think that's again, like sort of where is this river going to take us of life and humanity one step at a time? And I think that we might recognize that maybe that not only human beings have an internal sense that might be able to judge what is the proper amount of freedom, and I think human beings deserve a huge amount of freedom, personally. Like you always, but we might be working our way there. Like here in this Wall Street Journal, U.S. births in 2018 hit 32-year low. And there was a story about a week before also that in California, we are, maybe we as a species, maybe it's too late. Maybe we're facing extinction. Some people are,
good chance of that.
That's inevitable now, and it's just all just in the, hold your breath. But maybe it's moving, and looking at you and I, who are no longer young people, though maybe we still feel like we are, because
somewhat,
it doesn't seem like,
doesn't seem right.
60 years, that was nothing. 120 seems a little more reasonable. But so there's a lot of silver-haired people in this area, in California, and the world, and the next generation comes in. So to me, it might not even be teepees. It might be, that beautiful little suburb down in Santa Venetia.
Yeah.
Hey, 20 years from now, there's going to be places for people. Maybe the whole notion of like real estate too, which has always felt to me like it was something that is a little that you own and sell, and it's a profit-making enterprise. Maybe that has some validity for a certain. It's important to have a sense of ownership and a sense of belonging to your home. But maybe the whole thing starts opening up once human population is no longer
on the rise.
It's like stabilizing, and suddenly there's a home here. this person has lived in this community for 10 years. He's working in these stores. He's, they're a young married couple. Hey,
Yeah.
I'm dreaming too. You're dreaming, I'm
We,
dreaming.
yeah, and that's the beauty of people like us. We are dreamers. We want to see the future. We want to see our children see the future. We want to see things done right. And that's what's a little disheartening for a lot of us in this world right now, because there is so much that we could be doing right. Just the littlest of things. Just for an example, when I try to tell people it's hard to change your life and turn it around from the things you're involved with. But if you start with a small step, you can find out how rewarding it is to change your life around. So I use this aspect with people. I say it's actually easy not to litter, and you're actually doing the right thing by not doing it. And if you'll just start not doing it, you'll start feeling better about yourself. You'll start realizing I'm not a problem, and you'll find yourself even picking up litter to make amends. I mean, that's how rewarding it can be spiritually. But I also caution them too. You can have a bad day and you're like, ugh, it's okay to throw that litter down. That day it's okay, as long as you're going back and picking up more every day. It's kind of my point. We all stumble and fall as human beings. And going to our future, we really need to find a cause that brings us together, not just as a nation, as a world. I always thought it would have been better if we had a president that said, let's make the world great again. Because the reality, again, I go back to the A truth we have and the truth. The A truth is we live in the United States. The truth is, no, we're all from the same exact little tiny speck place. It doesn't have any borders. We're all from the earth. Where are you from? I'm from the earth. That's the truth. And that's kind of what I get back to trying to get people to understand. There is the truth in nature, or the laws of nature, or the truth in the reality of the world we live in. The natural truth, the truth. But we have these A truths. Oh, I'm from California. Yeah, it's a little white lie, really. It's a white lie.
Well,
It really is.
No more than I'm from Fairfax, or
right.
I live in.
No, I totally,
Forest
I get it
Knoll.
because I grew up in
And
it.
it's not necessarily. I don't think needs to have a connotation. Of,
What I'm trying to get people to understand, though, is that we've built all these things up, which, if you let them, can really confuse you to the truth. Now, whether I'm talking about borders or whatever, it's really understanding the truth, because I really don't understand racism. To me, it makes no sense, and you're out on a limb. You know.
Of course not.
It doesn't make sense.
And
It doesn't
tolerance
ring.
doesn't even make sense, because once you see somebody, no matter what, then you catch that spark from them. It's just not a question of tolerance. It's a question of give me your hand. This is somebody my heart is feeling like I'm connected to another human being. And it's almost more delightful that it's a person who is, dramatically seems to be different from a different culture, whatever.
Right.
If you feel like this bond, or want to give them a hug, or you think, geez, this is a great human being, period.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it is simply people don't get exposed, or don't even know that's possible. I think that I think the world gets scolded too much these days in terms of, you brought the word NIMBYism and the border thing. I feel like it's okay. It's okay to want to protect your community. It's okay to even define your community.
Right.
And it's okay to have a democratic system that says this community gets together and will, makes rules to govern this community. Everything becomes possible when the bigger spirit, like the Abraham Lincoln sense of religion, or like the Native American, or that we all walk under the same sky.
Right.
We all, it's the sun and the moon and the cycle of this rain and the magical rivers that flow, and the whole thing is life.
Right.
It's just, we're all connected. It's
And that's what I'm driving at. As humanity, we really need to drive back to the way things were a bit, and not see so much of our differences, but see our similarities, and kind of get back around that fire, and go back to sharing our stories of sorrow and joy, and our laughter and our music and our food. And And that's what when I was talking about disconnection and homelessness, you really become disconnected as a human being. But I do feel across the board, worldwide, that we're pretty much disconnected. A lot of us, we're disconnected from the truth.
Oh, no, this hideous plastic world sitting on top of a bunch of pavement with engines that zoom us all around the place, and to me, it's like we're just not even have our eyes open to the simple fantasticness of what's going on.
The simplicity of life, and that's kind of what I get back to. There's a lot of irony in being homeless. I remember 12 years ago, I had a lady that when I was involved with the REST program, the rotating emergency shelter team with St. Vincent de Paul's in Marin County. I was a staff, and I got to know a lot of the churches, different churches and synagogues and stuff throughout Marin County, an enormous amount of people through that. And I had a lady come to me one day, and she goes, "I saw you on the street the other day, and I felt sorry for you." And I had to stop her, because there's a lot of irony in homelessness in the world about, I said, "Oh, please don't do that." I said, "Sometimes we're on the street looking at you, and we feel sorry for you. You have no idea." And then there's a lot of rings true in that, because ironically with homelessness, the equation is you have nothing to do all day to do it. The sad part is you have nowhere to do it. Even if you wanted to do something like go sleep or lay down, you don't have any more. That's not a comfort.
Well,
The other hand, though, is when I told that lady, I said, "Please don't do that. We feel sorry for you, because first of all, I know you don't have any free time. None whatsoever. None. You're going to wait for that 2-week vacation to have some time off to do nothing." It's a sad give and take. The other thing I would like to share about being homeless is I spent 10 years outdoors. And there really is a lot to be said about sleeping on Mother Earth and being in the elements. And a lot of homeless people that understand that will tell you the same thing. I moved indoors, and it was 13 months before I could actually go to sleep anytime I wanted to, and it was funny because I moved into St. Vincent de Paul's, and I brought in a little rocking chair armless I have for playing guitar into my new apartment. And the first thing I did was take a bath, because I hadn't had a bath in 10 years. Now, I'd taken 3 showers a week at Ritter, but I hadn't had a bath, which is a big difference. So I soaked in the bathtub for a good 40 minutes, and I got out of the bathtub, got dressed, and I sat in my little rocking chair in my new room. And I looked at the stove, and first thing I thought was, wow, I hadn't had a bath in 10 years. That was great. And then I looked at the stove, and I go, wow, I'm going to cook my first meal for myself in 10 years. That's going to be great. And then I looked at the bed. I go, wow, I'm going to sleep in my own bed for the first time in 10 years. And then this passing thought came over my head. Wow, Albert, you're no longer homeless. And then I looked out the window, and the truth hit me. I'm homeless for the first time in 10 years. The earth is my home. That's what I learned, not this box I'm in. There's no connection with my Mother Earth, none whatsoever. I can't see the stars. I can't taste her. I can't smell her. I can't feel her. And it was a washover for me, because I was going, how ironic is this, all these people calling us homeless? All these people in these houses, boxed up, away from Mother Earth, telling us we're homeless. And it's something that's known in the homeless world. We're really at home. And that's kind of where I'm always pointing to the truth. You really don't know. There's something missing in our humanity when we're not connected to the earth. There's something to be said about sleeping on the earth. There's something to be said about watching the stars at night and feeling the minusculeness of your existence amongst all this amazement around us. I mean, there's so many reasons to want to live and enjoy life. There's so many beautiful things, just the stars at night, the birds, everything is just so beautiful. But we've created some pretty ugly stuff. There was a fellow, in respect to him, he passed away, but he was an anti-homeless fellow here in Marin County. He kind of led the banner. And Ritter Center put in a medical center. Well, in the process of doing that, they had to put up a firewall between the property next door and that double-wide trailer coming in to be the medical center. So they put this wall up, and they painted it gray, and they're getting ready to move the trailer in, and the anti-homeless advocate came by. He goes, oh, I don't like that wall. I don't like that, blocks my view. I hate that wall. And I looked around, and I go, they're all ugly. They all block your view. You're oblivious to the truth. You've chosen this one wall because this one wall represents something you don't like. Your ideology of, I don't like that wall, doesn't fit. It blocks your view, what? Of the liquor store next door? Oh my God, you can't see the. It's to a point of silliness because the reality is, and this is what I'm driving at, again, we've all lost aspect what it means to be alive, where we're alive at. Alive in your house is not alive. Alive on the earth, when you spend the nights and your days on the earth, you become connected again in levels I can't even begin to tell you spiritually and that. I've had so many wonderful things in my life. I was a cab driver for 9 years in Vallejo, which was the most deadliest, murderous city in 1995, and I got stabbed that year. And I continue to drive because most people are good. But I learned a lot about myself and other people, an enormous amount in that time. And then when I became homeless, I learned so much more, not about myself, but about all of us. When I became homeless this last time, I had a hard time remembering somebody's name because usually something memorable had to happen before I'd remember your name. But when I became homeless this time, my first week or two out here, I'd come across the fact that people weren't hearing their own name. Nobody was connecting to them. They don't have any human contact at all. And now I can't forget people's names because I realized at that time it was more important for me to remember their name for them so that I could greet them with their name because they weren't hearing it. And I was thinking, God, how horrible would that be to never to hear anybody call your name out? The disconnection. And I saw that right away. And for some reason, I remember everybody's name pretty much now, unless I don't see it for 10 years. It's a little hard, and I thank God for that insight to see the humanity. I found out if I'm not looking through other people's eyes, I'm not seeing the real world. That's what I found. I got to see myself in everybody, whether I like them or agree with them or don't like what they're doing. I have to see a little bit of me in them because we're all the same. So in doing that, and I like to call it the yin and yang, where you have black and white, and then you have that line right between. That's the gray line or the fence line. And I like to sit on the fence.
Of the yin and the yang.
The yin and the yang. When I come across something I don't understand or I don't like, let's say I don't like it, the only way I can judge it is to stand on that fence line, that gray line between the yin and the yang, and find humor. And in humor, I find the truth. So, because there's so much ironic about life. There's just so much ironic. So, it's a tool I use to learn to forgive people, to learn to understand what I'm dealing with and how to transcend or navigate through it or past it in life.
We're dealing. The homeless thing is the homeless people, as you were kind of speaking, have a connection, and you can't broadly say it because there's all different types of humanity who are experiencing it. But in many ways, they are almost like the pioneering people in search of our new sense of what it is to be on the planet.
Exactly.
And I personally have always felt like when you brought up earlier the Native American vision of and sustainability that was completely just like breathing, but
right.
You had to be in the rhythm of the seasons or whatever, is what we're really, the future, Attenborough's choice.
Right.
Where are we going?
Right.
To me, the future would be to discover our indigenous soul again.
Right.
And to find a way to get back. And not to me, define, all technology as something that, we're going to just, leave that behind. But at what level do we harness these gifts of our brain and, move forward with not No more littering, no more asphalt, no more
Right.
crap. Can we like?
It's too easy to, it's so much easier to do the right thing in life. Throughout all your life, if you only knew that in the beginning, it's so much easier to tell the truth. It's so much easier to do the right thing. Your life will be blessed. You'll, you know, I tell people this, even in your sorrows, even in your darkest sorrows, there's what I call the flake of gold. And it's almost invisible. But what I call it is, if you walk away from that situation and you can now know how to avoid it or find some aspect of it, that flake of gold, to keep you from going through it again, hang on to that and don't ever let go of it. Because if you hang on to that, there's a good chance you'll never have to go through that again. So,
I think it's
and we have to re-educate. I've thought this for a long time. The most important word in our future is not actually a word, it's a prefix, RE. We have to rethink, reevaluate, re-educate ourselves, redo, rework. We have to redo everything. Everything needs to be gone through again. Everything. We have to rethink every aspect. And that's why I'm pointing to these cities. Here's a wonderful way for our government to actually eliminate, they're thinking about eliminating money. Well, here's a great way. Let's open up this new city, which is the retirement and rehabilitation. There's no money there. There's no drugstores there. There's no liquor stores there. There's no gun stores there. They're not allowed in this city. This is a different city. This is the city that turned around. And like I said, it's very important that these elements are there. Our farming, gardening, animals, orchards, all of that, to draw people back to a simpler way of life, to bring them back into the clutches of nature, where you're not dealing with anything but nature. You're going to deal with some goats, some dogs, some cows, some pigs. You're going to deal with some trees. You're going to go pick apples today and collect some eggs out of the, These are things that will help people that are in distress through either drugs, alcohol, or hardcore mental. And hardcore, there's a big difference between what I call softcore mental, people that have, they're law-abiding, they're not really a problem, they're not on a substance, they just have mental issues for many different reasons. You got to have these elements that bring people back into nature. And that's the only way you're ever going to rescue any of these people. Because they've lost connection not only with humanity, but they lost it with nature. So if you want to get them back to humanity, you have to connect them with nature, plug them back in to nature. And you'll probably get about an 80 or 90% success rate of getting them back, I suspect.
It's one of those things that nature is what we are.
Right.
We can't, science isn't, we're not living in this world of science and nature is a subset of it. Nature is everything, and being alive, and I think we're getting to again in terms of what kind of future we want. We have to. It's not all about what we can potentially get in the future. It's all about what is.
When I talk about
every day we wake up to.
When I talk about these cities, there's so many wonderful ways, again, for the government to rethink how we pay people, how they equate to make a living, how they equate everything. So if you have these cities I'm talking about building, we give people, I think on average, about $1,200, whether on SDI or SSI or whatever, in the retirement sector, or a lot of this money. For that $1,200 a month, we could put them in a $5,000 tiny house of their own, feed them all month, and meet all their physical needs, and still be able to probably give them $100 or $200 in some equation. Again, like I said, if we build these cities, we don't even need cash. We don't need cash there. Everybody has a card, and your card, you can make money either through volunteering, or there'll be plenty of jobs in these cities to be had. There's so many, again, there's always problems, but there's always solutions, and that's what I see happening,
I think these cities exist already, and I think there are cities. And I think that when we do a little piece in any little city, we are in this everything is influenceable. Everything flows into another. Good ideas will gain strength. Yeah. Things that have integrity are things that are going to last. And so we the world can alter itself. It can heal itself, I believe.
So one of the things
we're going to have to wrap this up. I know you're coming. Once you,
I'll bring it to close right now. But when we're dealing with disassociated people in society, and I talk about bringing them to the cities, a lot of people, when I talk even about the Green Village, people go, well, people won't go there. And here's really the beauty of it. Of course, all the elderly, I don't know of anybody that really is in the elderly sector or disabled that wouldn't want to go there. The other beauty of it is, here across America, I know just in this county, we have so many revolving people going in and out of the court doors weekly, alcoholics. And the judges, their hands are tied. What can I do with this? What can I do with this person? Well, here's where the beauty comes in when you build some city that's ready to take on 3 million people, is the judge can go, you're going to that city for a year. Now, when you get done, you can come on back. But if I have a problem with you going back to that city, or you can go to that city and stay there. And that's basically what I'm talking about, because there's a percentage of homelessness, I would say somewhere around 20 or 30%, that people just will not fit back into society. And they're loose on our streets right now. And they're causing a great number of, a lot of damage. They're costing an enormous amount of money in ambulance and police calls. So what I'm saying is, if we build these cities, we can actually remove them and rehabilitate them, or at least give them someplace nice to live for the rest of their life.
Well, it's an open door for us. And we stand every day, not in the future or not in the past, but right here, alive in the present. And
but now's the time for all of us good thinkers to come together and start doing something, because I do think you'd mentioned we may be past the precipice of our future, but let's hope not. And I think we really need to get this fire going under people as quick as possible to save ourselves and save our future for our children.
Absolutely.
Right. We hit on some topics in that, but there's a lot more that we could talk about.
We could keep talking forever here.
So if you get a demand for it, I'll come back and talk some more about it.
Right.